It was never you.
This video explores one of the biggest questions heading into the Stranger Things finale. Is Vecna truly the ultimate villain of the series? Or has the Mind Flayer always been the more fundamental and dangerous force behind everything? By examining what the show has already confirmed about the Upside Down, Henry Creel's transformation and the hive mind connection argues that while Vecna may be the face of the threat, the Mind Flayer may be the foundation that made the entire nightmare possible. From the moment Stranger Things began, the show established fear as something unseen. In Season 1, the Demogorgon wasn't evil because it had a plan. It was evil because it existed. The Upside Down felt like a hostile environment rather than a calculated invasion. As the seasons progressed, the Mind Flayer emerged as something much bigger, not just a monster, but a presence. It didn't need dialogue or motivation to feel terrifying. It was everywhere, watching, spreading, and infecting. Then Vecna arrived and changed everything. Suddenly, the darkness had a voice, a philosophy, and a very human face. Naturally, viewers assumed that meant Vecna was the final boss. But the deeper you analyze the story, the more that assumption starts to crack. Vecna's introduction was never about replacing the Mind Flayer.
It has never controlled me. And I never controlled it.
It was about reframing it. Henry Creel doesn't create the Upside Down. He doesn't invent its power, nor does he summon the Mind Flayer into existence. When he's cast into that world, the darkness is already there. The particles that would later form the Mind Flayer are already present, drifting through an alien environment that clearly predates him. This detail is crucial because it establishes Vecna not as an origin point, but as an adapter. He shapes what already exists into something that aligns with his worldview. This is where many fans misunderstand Vecna's role. He feels like the mastermind because he speaks, explains, and taunts. But intelligence and authorship are not the same thing. Vecna gives the Upside Down intention, but the desire to spread and assimilate exists independently of him. The Mind Flayer doesn't need ideology. It functions instinctively, like a cosmic parasite. Vecna doesn't replace that instinct. He weaponizes it. The show itself quietly confirms this when Vecna describes his connection to the Mind Flayer. He explicitly states that neither of them control the other. That line matters more than most people realize. If Vecna were truly the supreme villain, control would be the first thing he'd claim. Instead, he describes unity and dependence. This reframes their relationship as symbiotic rather than hierarchical. The Mind Flayer gives Vecna reach, amplification, and scale. Vecna gives the Mind Flayer direction, cruelty, and focus. Remove either one, and the threat weakens. This symbiosis explains why Vecna's power grows in proportion to the Mind Flayer's influence. Every victim absorbed into the hive mind strengthens both of them. Every open gate expands their reach. Vecna doesn't grow stronger alone. He grows stronger through connection. Ironically, the very thing he despises about humanity is what empowers him most. That irony is intentional. Vecna believes individuality is a flaw, yet he depends on a collective consciousness to function at his peak. He views himself as evolution incarnate, but without the Mind Flayer's hive mind, he's just a powerful psychic entity with limited reach. The Mind Flayer, on the other hand, doesn't need belief or ideology. It spreads because that's what it does. Vecna's philosophy simply gives that spread a narrative justification. This distinction is why it's more accurate to describe the Mind Flayer as the most fundamental threat rather than the confirmed main villain. Stranger Things never outright states that the Mind Flayer is in charge. Instead, it shows us something more unsettling. The Upside Down functions like a system. Vecna is a component of that system, albeit a critical one. The Mind Flayer is closer to the system itself. This perspective changes how we interpret the party's actions. Early in the series, the goal was survival. Later, it became containment. Now it's disruption. The group no longer believes that killing a single monster will end the threat. Every plan revolves around breaking connections, closing gates, severing psychic links, and destabilizing the hive mind. That shift alone tells us where the real danger lies. You don't dismantle infrastructure unless the infrastructure is the problem. Will Byers embodies this truth more than anyone. His connection to the Upside Down isn't tied solely to Vecna. He senses something broader, something ambient. His discomfort doesn't spike only when Vecna is active. It lingers. That's because the Mind Flayer isn't just an enemy. It's an environment. Vecna moves within it. But the Mind Flayer is always present, always watching, always influencing. If Vecna were removed tomorrow, the Upside Down wouldn't suddenly become harmless. The gates wouldn't close themselves. The corruption wouldn't vanish instantly. That lingering danger is what makes the Mind Flayer so terrifying. It represents a threat that doesn't need a personality to persist. This is where Eleven's role becomes essential to the narrative. 11 is not a conqueror. She doesn't dominate others to gain power. Her strength comes from connection, empathy, and emotional bonds. The Mind Flayer erases individuality. 11 reinforces it. Vecna seeks control. 11 seeks understanding. That thematic opposition is at the heart of Stranger Things. The final conflict isn't just physical, it's philosophical. Any ending that truly resolves the story must address this contrast. Defeating Vecna alone would be satisfying, but incomplete. The show has spent too much time establishing the hive mind.
Monsters?
I assume the hive mind works here too, so if Henry died, so did all his nasty little minions.
The interconnectedness and the systemic nature of the Upside Down to resolve everything with a single death. Vecna may be the most visible threat, but the Mind Flayer is the mechanism that allows that threat to exist at scale. This doesn't mean Vecna is irrelevant. Far from it. Vecna is dangerous precisely because he understands the system and exploits it. He is the human element that turns an alien force into a targeted invasion. But that also means he's vulnerable. Systems can be disrupted. Connections can be severed. And once that happens, even the most powerful component loses its edge. So when fans debate whether Vecna or the Mind Flayer is the real villain of Stranger Things, the answer isn't binary. Vecna is the antagonist we fear. The Mind Flayer is the force we must overcome. One is a character with an arc. The other is a presence that defines the rules of the world. And in storytelling, forces like that are always more dangerous than individuals. Stranger Things has always been about more than monsters. It's about resistance to dehumanization. It's about holding on to identity in the face of systems that want to erase it. Vecna represents what happens when a human embraces that erasure willingly. The Mind Flayer represents a universe where erasure is simply the default state. That's why the Mind Flayer feels like the true endgame threat. Not because it speaks louder or hits harder, but because it doesn't need to care. And defeating something that doesn't care is infinitely harder than defeating something that does. In the end, Vecna may fall. His ideology may collapse. His body may be destroyed. But the real victory will only come when the system that empowered him is dismantled. Because in Stranger Things, the scariest evil isn't the one with a face. It's the one that was there long before anyone knew to look for it.